Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Mrs. Miller here with another First Chapter Friday. Our last First Chapter Friday of the year, since this will be the last one you'll be seeing in 2019. So the book I have for you today is called The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle. It's by Avi. It's been a long time since I've read this book, but all of his books are really, really good. So I highly recommend them. An important warning. Not every 13-year-old girl is accused of murder, brought to trial, and found guilty. But I was just such a girl, and my story is worth reading, even if it did happen years ago. Be warned, however, this is no story of a bad boy. Know what Katie did. If strong ideas and action offend you, read no more. Find another companion to share your idle hours. For my part, I intend to tell the truth, as I lived it. But before I begin relating what happened, you must know something about me. As I was in the year 1832, when these events transpired. At the time, my name was Charlotte Doyle, and though I have kept the name, I am not, for reasons you will soon discover, the same Charlotte Doyle. How shall I describe the person I once was? At the age of 13, I was very much a girl, not yet having begun to take the shape, much less the heart, of a woman. Still, my family dressed me as a young woman, bonnet covering my beautiful hair, full skirts, high-bottom shoes, and you may be sure, white gloves. I certainly wanted to be a lady. It was not just my ambition, it was my destiny. I embraced it wholly, gladly, with not an untoward thought of anything else. In other words, I think that at the time of these events, I was not anything more or less than what I appeared to be, an acceptable, ordinary girl of parents in good standing. Though American-born, I spent the years between my 6th and 13th birthdays in England. My father, who engaged in manufacture of cotton goods, functioned as an agent for an American business there. But in the early spring of 1832, he received an advancement and was summoned home. My father, an ardent believer in regularity and order, decided it would be better if I finished out my school term rather than break it off mid-year. My mother, whom I never knew to disagree with him, accepted my father's decision. I would follow my parents as well as my younger brother and sister to our true home, which was in Providence, Rhode Island. Lest you think my parents' judgment was rash in allowing me to travel without them, I will show you how reasonable, even logical, their decision was. First, they felt that by my remaining a boarder at the Barrington School for Better Girls, Miss Weed, eminent and most proper headmistress, I would lose no school time. Second, I would be crossing the Atlantic, a trip that could last anywhere from 1 to 2 months during the summer when no formal education took place. Third, I was to make my voyage upon a ship owned and operated by my father's firm. Fourth, the captain of the ship had acquired a reputation, so my father informed me, for quick and profitable Atlantic crossings. Then there was this. 2 families known to my parents had also booked passage on the ship. The adults had promised to function as my guardians. Having been told only that these families included children, 3 lovely girls and a charming boy, I had looked forward to meeting them more than anything else. So when you consider that I had but dim memories of making the crossing to England when I was 6, you will understand that I saw the forthcoming voyage as all a lark. A large, beautiful boat, jolly sailors, no school to think about, companions of my own age. One more point. I was given a volume of blank pages, how typical of my father, and instructed to keep a daily journal of my voyage across the ocean, so that the writing of it should prove of educational value to me. Indeed, my father warned me that not only would he read the journal and comment upon it, but he would pay particular attention to the spelling. Not my strongest suit. Keeping that journal, then, is what enables me to relate now in perfect detail everything that transpired during that fateful voyage across the Atlantic Ocean in the summer of 1832. Part 1. Chapter 1. Just before dusk in the late afternoon of June 16th, 1832, I found myself walking along the crowded docks of Liverpool, England, following a man by the name of Grummage. Though a business associate of my father, Mr. Grummage was, like my father, a gentleman. It was he my father delegated to make the final arrangements for my passage to America. He was also to meet me when I came down from school on the coach, then see me safely stowed aboard the ship that my father had previously selected. Mr. Grummage was dressed in a black frock coat with a stovepipe that added to his considerable height. His somber, shallow face registered no emotion. His eyes might have been that of a dead fish. "Miss Doyle?" he said, as I stepped from the Liverpool coach. "Yes, sir. Are you Mr. Grummage?" "I am." "Pleased to meet you," I said, dipping a curtsy. "Quite," he returned. "Now, Miss Doyle, if you would be so good as to indicate which is your trunk. I have a man here to carry it. Next, please oblige me by following, and everything shall be as it's meant to be." Might I have said goodbye to my chaperone? Is that necessary? She's been very kind. Make haste, then. In a flutter of nervousness, I identified my trunk, threw my arms around Miss Emerson, my sweet companion for the trip down, and bid her a tearful farewell. Then I rushed to Mr. Grummage, who had already begun to move on. A rough-looking porter, laboring behind, carried my trunk upon his back. Our little parade reached dockside in good order. There, I became instantly agog at the mass of ships that lay before us, masts and spars, thick as bristles on a brush. Everywhere I looked, I saw mountains of rare goods piled high, bales of silk and tobacco, chests of tea, a parrot, a monkey. Oh yes, the smell of the sea was intoxicating to one who knew little more than the smell of the trim-cut lawns in the fields of the Barrington School. Then, too, the surging crowds of workers, sailors, and merchants, all rough-hewn, brawny men, created an exotic late-afternoon hubbub. All in all, it was the most delicious chaos, which, while mildly menacing, was no less exciting because of that. Indeed, in some vague way, I had the feeling that it was all there for me. "Mr. Grummage, sir," I called over the din, "what is the name of the ship I'm to sail on?" Mr. Grummage paused briefly to look at me as though surprised I was there, to say nothing of asking a question. Then, from one of his pockets, he drew a screw of paper. Squinting at it, he pronounced, "The Seahawk." "Is she British or American?" "American. A merchant ship?" "To be sure. How many masts?" "I don't know." "Will the other families already be on board?" "I should think so," he answered, exasperation in his voice. "For your information, Miss Doyle, I received word of your departure was being put off, but when I checked with the captain directly, he informed me that there must have been a misunderstanding. The ship is scheduled to leave with the first tide tomorrow morning, so there can be no delay." To prove the point, he turned to move again. I, however, unable to quell my excited curiosity, managed to slip in one more question. "Mr. Grummage, sir, what is the captain's name?" Mr. Grummage stopped again, frowning in an irritated fashion, but all the same consulted his paper. "Captain Jaggery," he announced, and once more turned to go. "Here," the porter exclaimed suddenly. He had come up close and overheard our talk. Both Mr. Grummage and I looked about. "Did you say Captain Jaggery?" the porter demanded, making it perfectly clear that if so, the porter had committed a serious breach of decorum. "I was," the man said, talking over my head, "and I'm asking if I heard right when you said we was going to a ship mastered by a certain Captain Jaggery." He spoke the name Jaggery as if there was something positively loathsome. "I was not addressing you," Mr. Grummage informed the man, "but I hears you all the same," the porter went on, and so saying he swung my trunk down upon the dock with such ferocious crack that I feared it would snap in two. "I don't intend to take one more step toward anything to do with Mr. Jaggery. Not for double gold. Not one more step." We're going to stop there. So, this book is called The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle. It's by Ovi. And as you can kind of tell, it sort of foreshadows some kind of grand adventure that Charlotte is going to go on. And it's a really, really good book. I remember when I read it, it really kept me reading, and I wanted to read it and get it done because it was so good. It kept you on the edge of your seat. So I hope you enjoy it. I also hope you have a wonderful holiday and a Happy New Year.